Stream starting. Okay, everybody quiet, and we're good to go. And good morning from Philadelphia.
Good morning, Frank.
How are you today? James, are you there still?
Yeah, I'm here from Westchester, New York. How's everybody?
Doing great. Okay, we got Rob Freeman, who's just coming out with a new documentary, Making Contact, Be Inspired. And thanks for joining us, Rob. And James, take it away.
Yeah, for anybody in the CE5 community, I think, Rob has not made a big splash yet, but he's slowly coming up there. I mean, I only heard of you, Rob, just a few months ago. Believe it or not, we have a mutual friend. He usually remains on the very skeptical side, and he's a very serious researcher. Charles, I would butcher his last name if I try to say it. You know what I'm talking about.
Lamero.
Yeah. And he said he was going to a CE5 event, and I was like, what?
So yes. We put on a fabulous CE5 event in Joshua Tree, California. And I think I sent you some of the pictures of some of the things we got. We had a lot of different people there. We had Paola Harris. And it was really a two-pronged event. It was really for CE5 making contact in the evening. And we were out for up to 8 hours every night from 8 o'clock until, really about 3, some of us 4 in the morning. Paola Harris was there. We had Leon Valverde there. He has quite a group in the Spanish contingent. We had the National Director of MUFON Canada, Stu Bundy. He came out. We had his Chief Investigator also there coming out, and a few other people, and it was quite a fabulous week. We saw a lot of things in the sky. We debunked several of them. We had this, I guess you'd say it was a drone. It was circulating off in the distance, circulating around and around and around. We didn't see it live, but when we played back the time-lapse photography, we could see it was going around and around and around. We don't know if they were just watching us or if they were just protecting one of the nearby bases. And then we had a lot of flares happening. Some people might call them a CE5 event, but when we actually looked close at the night vision photographs and video, we could see planes that were dropping these off, and they were just flares that were lasting for a few seconds. So typically flares last a lot longer than that, so maybe they're just trying to mess us up a bit. We don't know. We did have a couple of events happen. We had kind of like an orb go right across the sky, and it blinked out. It came on and it blinked out, and it was kind of like a reddish orange. We had all the equipment facing it and photographing and videoing it, but we didn't capture it, which was odd. And in this phenomenon, there's so many strange things that happen. The only thing we can figure is that with the time-lapse equipment, I had it running for 30 seconds, and then in the Sony camera, it processes for 2.5 seconds between each shot. So it appears that this orb went across the sky during that 2.5 seconds.
High strangeness. There you go.
Yeah,
and I commend you, because trying to document this stuff is not easy at all. You can have the best equipment. I mean, look at even with Nids trying to do work on the Skinwalker Ranch, even if that's ET and other phenomenon as well. But that when you're talking about high strangeness, it's not easy to document. But let me backtrack for a minute.
Sure.
Let's get back to how you got into all this, because even for me, I've been in the CE5 community for about a decade now, and you seem to come out of nowhere, and your project just looks amazing, super quality. I mean the energy behind it looks great. I mean the integrity definitely seems to be there. So why don't you take us back into how you got into this?
Oh, and also, Rob, if you could tell the folks where they can look at the trailer over on YouTube, because the trailer is great.
Sure. Okay, my personal YouTube channel is Rob Freeman, Atmospheric Anomalies, and you'll see the trailer there. And the name of our project is mcbiproject.com. So it's Making Contact Be Inspired, but it's just short. If you type in M as in mother, mcbiproject.com. So that's like the Making Contact Be Inspired project. And you'll see all kinds of things there, including all our past expeditions that we've done on our own. There's tons of them, and we've got photo montages and little stories there. So you'll see all that on the internet. But how it all started was when I was a kid of 12 years old. I lived in Sarnia, Ontario. That's just across the river from Port Huron, Michigan, right at the bottom of Lake Huron. I was 12 years old, and I was in Scouts. And the one Monday night, it was back in March of 1966, my mom had said, when you're done Scouts, just to give me a call. I'll be along in 15 minutes to pick you up, but go outside. They have to lock the church up because it's like, 9:30 at night. So I gave her a call. She said, I'll be along. And I went outside, and these kids that were outside on the street said, hey, mister, there's a helicopter up in the sky. I don't know why they called me mister. I was only 12 years old, but I guess with my hat, my tie, my shiny shoes, I must have looked like a mister to them. But anyway, I looked up and I saw this light, and I studied it for, 15, 20 seconds. And I told the kids, this is not a helicopter. They asked me what it was, and I said, I don't know. And I kept watching it. And the kids, they were playing when they finally disappeared. And it was going from the north to the south slowly, and it seemed to be up at about 800 to 1,000 feet from what I could figure out. And every time it came and changed directions, it did it in the blink of an eye. And that was what kind of raised the hair up on my arm, was, wait a second, anything that I know of has to come to a stop or at least go in an arc in order to change directions, anything physical. But this did not do that. And, this is back in 1966. So I was watching it all by myself, and every time it changed direction, it was getting lower and lower. And now it's up at about 600 feet, I would say, and I could make out more detail. And it appeared to have like, I'm going to call it, this light that I saw appeared now to be more like a lens in the bottom of this, whatever it was. And then what really spooked me out was I could see figures moving behind this. And I thought, uh-oh, is this a UFO? And back then they called them flying saucers. I thought, is this a flying saucer? And it was really during the big Michigan flap of 1966. And so this kind of spilled over into Ontario, Canada. And I thought, I was sort of interested in these things. I read about them. I remember I got a book out of the library, and I was interested, but I thought, uh-oh, I'm actually now into an encounter. I didn't really ask for this. And it appeared to me, I felt like I was being stalked, that it was watching me. And I could feel the hair go up on my arm more, and I was getting kind of nervous, and I'm kind of praying and hoping my mom will get there pretty soon. And just then she showed up. And now my scaredness turned into excitement. And I said, hey, Mom, you got to get out of the car and see this UFO. And she said, oh, don't be silly, Rob. You got homework to do. Let's go home. And I said, no, get out of the car. And so I'm kind of fighting with her here for about 30 seconds. And finally, I got her to get out of the car. And we both looked up in the sky, and it was gone. And I thought, great, now I'm a liar. Now I'm this guy that's made up this whole story. So we were kind of pretty quiet on the way home because I knew she was thinking that I just imagined this whole thing. So I wasn't happy. I get home, I say what happened to my dad and my brother, and everybody just laughed. So I just went to my room and did my homework and went to bed, and that was the end of it. But the next day after school, when I walked in the door, my mom was all excited. And she opened up the newspaper and she says, Rob, look, it's all in the paper what you saw last night. And I thought, there is a God after all. And I was validated, and it was all over the front page of the newspaper. Oh, wow. And it got into detail about how on the second page, it got into detail about how the Selfridge Air Force Base in Michigan, and Selfridge, Michigan, right across the river and just down maybe, 10, 15 miles down the river, they had sent up 2 jets, fighters, after this thing, and it just took off at a high rate of speed and left them in the dust. So, they had interviews with police officers on the Canadian side. They were talking there was 200 people that saw it on Sarnia, and they had interviews with a lot of the people. So, for me, that was a validation. And as a result of that newspaper article, I've never been afraid to talk about things. A lot of people are kind of nervous they'll get made fun of or laughed at, but because it was in the newspaper, I was validated, and I became the school celebrity about the guy that had seen this. And so my friend who lived right across the street said, Rob, I'd love to see one of these. How could we see one? So I just kind of, on the spot, I said, I don't know, maybe if we go on the roof of my house, we'll see some. So the next clear night, we climbed up the antenna. It was one of those triangle things that you can climb up with your hands and feet. We had a 1-floor home with more of not a very steep roof. So we went up there with our blankets, pillows, binoculars, walkie-talkies, compass, tape recorder, everything, notes, pen, paper, the whole 9 yards. And it's kind of a much cheaper version of what I have today. And we were up there about 30 minutes, and, we talked about everything we wanted to talk about, and we were getting kind of bored and a little bit cold. And I said to him, John, I don't think we're going to, and the second I went to say, see anything, from the north, there was hundreds of these white lights that went across the sky all the way from the north to the south in about a second and a half. They seemed to be in the heavens, but it was like a flotilla that just went from one horizon to the other in a second and a half. And we're just looking at each other, and it's like, holy cow, did you see that? And we could hardly talk. And we're saying, what was it? What is it? And we didn't know. And then 30 seconds later, this whole flotilla went from the south back to the north, once again in a second or a second and a half. So we were pretty excited about what we just saw. We climbed down and we went across to his place where my folks were with his folks having coffee. We tried to tell them the story, and they just laughed at us and, kept talking. And in disgust, we went back to my place and watched Star Trek, I guess. So, that was that. And I always wondered all during my life, was that something government, or was that truly something extraterrestrial? I really didn't have any idea. And it was about 4 years ago, my good friend Mark McNabb, who we did a couple movies together, 2 or 3 movies, children's movies together. And during one of the breaks where the actors are getting their makeup on, and it's kind of like, hurry up and wait, you're sometimes waiting for 20 minutes while they're getting ready. And all the people that are sort of present on the set, you just kind of tell stories. What's going on in your life, what's happening here, what's happening there. Somehow the subject of UFOs came up. And I told my story. And we all just moved on to other stories. I didn't think anything of it. Anyway, 6 months later, he came to me. We met for lunch. He says, Rob, we're going to go around the world. And I said, what for? And he said, that second time you saw the UFO, that was not coincidental. I said, what do you mean? He said, you guys, as young, open-minded, budding scientists, You guys called those in. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. He said, I've talked to people all over the world in CE5 groups and various different people, and it was no coincidence. You guys put the intention out there. You wanted to see something, and you did. It was no coincidence. I said, really? He said, yeah. And he said, we're going to go around the world. We're going to meet CE5 people. We're going to meet experts. We're going to meet people who regularly see things in the sky and have experiences. We're going to join them out in the field. We're going to interview them. We're going to make a documentary. And I said, who's going to pay for it? And he said, you are. So we've been doing that. It's been over 3.5 years now, and we've had a fantastic time. It's, you know, we see a lot of stuff, and at the beginning, everything we saw was UFOs. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. You know, as we got more into it, and as we applied our own debunking skills and learned how to debunk, most of the stuff now that we see is explainable, but there's that 5, maybe 10% that is not explainable. For example, you know, we did meet with Charles, who you talked about earlier. We went out to Vancouver. We went out in one of the parks with him, and we did manage to capture some orbs with the night vision and with the thermal, and that was great. Charles gets a lot of orbs. And he sent us on a little trip to go up to Britannia Beach. It was going to be raining that night, so he didn't feel like going. And this was just last July, like a year ago, last July. And so we went up to Britannia Beach. We talked to people there, and nobody had ever seen anything. He thought we might see stuff around the old abandoned mine there. So the ladies we met in the gift shop, they said, if you want to see something strange, go a little bit further north to Squamish, BC. And we traveled in the car further. We had myself, Marcus McNabb, Liz Gorin, part of our group, and we had Breslin Martin, one of our, she helps me out with an app that I have. I have an app called Project Capture, which you can document stuff. It's for iPhone. Anyway, we went up to Squamish, BC, to the big rock there, and we just had this real strong feeling we were going to see something. The ladies in the gift shop at Britannia Bay had said that orbs had been seen above that mountain, and that's a sacred mountain. It's like a monolith. It just goes straight up. It's quite famous, and it's sacred to the natives. We found a great spot that everybody agreed was where it was going to happen, and we just parked the WMD weapon of mass detection, or debunction, because both of those things are important. And we had it set up, but we weren't recording. I wasn't recording. We were just chit-chatting. And then Breslin looks over and she said, what's that? And I looked, and there was this very bright light that was just moving along over the mountain. So I quickly turned the camera setup, and I thought, which camera will I do? I thought, well, I'll do the night vision. And I hit the night vision, and because it was moving quickly, I thought, I don't dare take my eye off the screen on the night vision. If I do, to set the other cameras recording, I'm going to miss it. So I only recorded with the night vision, and the sighting was only 10 seconds long. You can hear me say, oh, because we saw it go right into the trees. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is not an airplane. This is not the ISS. This is truly something different. So the video has gone viral. We reported it to the newspaper there locally. We actually set up a sighting on MUFON. We reported it as a sighting. They investigated it and validated it as unknown. In other words, it's not something terrestrial. And I think it was projected to be something like 6 feet in diameter. And, you know, that sighting has now gone to become one of the top 13 sightings internationally that MUFON has for 2017. So it's just called the Squamish Orb. You can Google it or just put it in under YouTube and you can see the video. So that was a neat thing we got. Sorry, I've now lost my track, guys. You know, rein me in and keep me where you want me to go here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we were just going from, how you started this into where your adventure basically is today.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
well, I mean, I hear you talking a lot about debunking and checking your work, which is so important in this field, especially since now the field is opening up more and a lot more people are coming on board and starting CE5. Everybody gets the newbie blood and they jump at everything they see and they're like, oh my God. And then you kind of learn over time, oh, wait, no, that's just that. Or, you begin to learn the sky, because when you're first looking up at the sky, it's you see all these things. And then when you get some field experience, you're able to discern what you're looking at. And so why don't you take us through that process? Because I think that's so important, especially for new people getting in this field, and even people who are in the field and they could use an educational curve.
Yes. Now, here's one thing that's very controversial, and I'm just going to put out what I believe, and based on our research of others, and just my experience. Quite often, you see flashes in the sky. Now, some might be authentic, but I think many of them are explained. For example, at many CE Vive events, I hear this term power up. And if I hear it one more time, I'm gonna scream. Because there's the Iridium satellites, but if you go to some of these apps, you can see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of what they call rocket bodies that are up there, and they're rotating around.
Just what app are you talking about? Just so viewers know.
Let me see if I can take a look here. I got all the apps here, but the one in particular is called Skyview for iPhone. I don't know if it's available in Android, but it's called Skyview. It kind of has the Big Dipper for an icon, and it's just showing the land in a tree, and it's kind of purplish with black.
I think it's an Apple exclusive, but still. Yeah.
It's called Skyview. And on that, it shows rocket bodies that are moving, and you can look anywhere in the sky and you see them. So here's what happens. So once the sun goes down...
Rob, just jumping in real quick. Rocket body, you talking about satellites now, or what do you mean here?
Rocket bodies. These are rockets that have launched the satellites that are still up there. Space junk. Okay, and there's thousands of them. And here's the thing, is they're turning. Okay? Satellites generally don't turn. Satellites are set up so that they send their signal with their antenna down to Earth, and they're fixed. They can be moving around the sky in a straight orbit, or they can be geostationary where they're fixed. They're higher up and they're moving at the same rate that the Earth is turning. So they're fixed. Okay, and they're not turning around. You do have the satellites that are in lower Earth orbit, which are traveling. And those can actually hit a point where they are reflecting the sun, maybe with their solar panel. They
generally have the big solar, the solar panel.
Yeah, and so they will kind of light up, and they can light up in a bit of they'll kind of come on with a light, and then they'll slowly go off, and you can see them going across the sky. That's typically what that is. Not exclusively. I also believe with this phenomenon, they hide in plain sight, the phenomenon, and you get them copying satellites. You get them, they can copy just about anything. But once again, 95% of what we see up there can be explained. You guys and me, we're interested in that 5%, but we got to debunk out the other 90%. We can't get excited about every little light that flashes up in the sky. But what happens is the satellites will, even though the sun has set on the ground, as you go higher and higher, the sun comes back into view, so that where the satellites are, it can be still in the sun for several hours after sunset. So if a satellite is going across and its reflective surface, whether it's the solar panels, happens to reflect the sunlight back at the right angle, you're going to see it light up. Okay? So that's one thing to be cognizant of. The other is these rocket bodies and this space junk. And that's very common. And what will happen is you'll see something flash in the sky. Everybody gets excited, including many of the CE5 groups, and I call it a power-up. Well, before they start jumping and saying it's an ET, Measure the time. Like start your iPhone or your Android and do a time lapse thing and hit start and measure the time now to the next flash.
Yeah, if it's on a pattern.
Yeah, and if it's on a pattern that's exact, then all it likely is, I'm not going to say 100%, but what it likely is just one of these rocket bodies that's turning slowly. And every time its reflective surface comes around, you're going to get a flash, you know? And this is so annoying because everybody gets excited and says, oh, it's an ET flash. You know, they'll flash their lasers at it. And of course, it flashes back. Well, it's on a pattern.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who put up videos now and they say CE5 video, UFO or craft, ET craft. And, I appreciate their effort, but it kind of muddies the waters. And then people who are looking at the video who might be learned in some of the aerial phenomena, they might say, oh, well, that's just that. And that it kind of brings CE5 down a bit. So it's so important for anybody that's going to attempt CE5 to learn this kind of stuff.
Yes.
I do want to get back. To this aspect that you're talking about now. But what are some things that people should look for?
Okay, so here's what you really do want to look for, and it's all woven in with all the known stuff and the stuff we know. You want to look for lights that are moving across the sky that slow down or speed up. Satellites don't do that. You want to look for a light that changes direction. Now, be very careful if you've got lasers, never shine the laser at an object because it could be a plane. Yeah. And it could be the fact that you're looking at it at an angle where you're seeing its landing lights on and you don't see its navigational lights.
Yeah.
So, these guys that shine their light at it saying it's an ET are going to blind the pilot. Well, first of all, you can go to jail for that.
And
and in the States especially, on some of these planes, they have equipment that can pinpoint where the laser is coming from. So, before you're even finished your CE5 session, you might just get, somebody from the federal government stopping by to arrest you. So, don't
the other men in black.
Yeah, the other men in black. So, use a circle. Draw a circle around it to point it out to your fellow attendees. Because a lot of guys are blinking their lasers at it, and of course it flashes back if it's one of these rocket bodies, and it's going to flash back every 2 seconds or every 10 seconds, or I've had them flash every 18 seconds, for example. And
a good point too is like, say it was an extraterrestrial or ET craft or a genuine UFO. I mean, do you really want to be shining your laser directly at them? That's not a welcome.
I guess, in the circles we travel in, and I'm sure you do too, that it's considered a bit of a hostile act.
Yeah.
It's very rude to the whoever it is that's operating that craft. It's considered, it's rude. It's not really a good thing to do. So just put the circle of light around it. Other things they can do, let me think here. There's copycat meteors and asteroids and shooting stars and comets. They don't behave in a way that's consistent with how meteorites operate. And on that one, you just have to spend hours and hours watching, and you'll start to know the difference. The one we saw in Joshua Tree, it just came on, went across the sky, and it didn't go as fast as a meteorite would go, and then it went off. And I just want to quickly follow up on that one. One of the other fellas we all saw that one, but then there was another one a few seconds later that was off to the right, and only he saw that. He came to me after, and he said, Rob, when you look at your time lapse, see if you can see that one also. So we went to the exact time, and I played the time lapse back. That one was not captured either. The only thing we can surmise is that also it happened to in quotes, happened to show up during that 2.5 second time period between the 30-second shots. And it's like, now, come on, that's too coincidental to be coincidental.
Yeah.
Maybe it can happen once, but twice in the same session, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, you know, after a while, I think, you know, people shouldn't give up. Like, okay, everybody gets excited about seeing lights in the sky. Maybe that keeps them motivated for the first while.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think what will happen is over time, you get bored of seeing the same stuff over and over and over again, which you realize is explained. But when you really, really spend the time and doing the CE5 protocols, and you can do them formally, or you can, you know, really just set the intention. Personally, I don't think it matters. I really don't. You know, and I might get into a fight with people by saying that, but you know, it was my intention that brought them in when I was a kid, and it's still our intention that's doing it today.
Yeah, and for a note for people listening, the CE5 protocols, it's like a for dummies guideline. It's a fail safe. If you practice the protocols, it's a great guideline. You're gonna eventually get good at it and kind of go on your own version of it. You know, there's no set thing. But if you have no idea what to do and you want like a structured way to learn it, go. You know, it'll help for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would recommend people to do it. We do it from time to time, and we get with different groups. We do it as well with them. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. I think it's a great way to get started, and it's a good thing to do at any time for sure. But I can cite an example here also. When we were in Peru, we had met the famous Sixto Paz Wells. He let us. Yep. He let us interview him at his home, and he said he generally doesn't do that. And we asked him why he did, and he said he had received information that we were coming before we even contacted him, and that he felt that it was important that we were doing documentary, and that he would allow us to interview him in his backyard in the privacy of his own property. So he told us many things that can happen. We experienced many of those things in Peru. One of the things we had happen was we were on a mountainside near ruins of the steppe farming that the Incas do and so on. And we weren't far from a museum where all the relics were. We had gone up a mountain road where this museum was, and it was just closing, and we saw another gate that went further up the mountain, and we walked into the museum, and we asked the guy, how could we go up that road? We want to skywatch for several hours tonight. And he said, well, this is our road. And he said, if you pay the entrance and let me give you the tour of the museum, I'll leave the gate open for you, and you guys can just stay there and skywatch all night. So we did. We paid the money and had his tour of the museum, and it was very interesting learning. And then he left the gate open. We went up high up in the mountain where there was just nothing around. We could see down to the village below, like several miles below. We had a beautiful vista of the valley from one end to the other, and we thought it was going to be a great spot to skywatch. And this is, you know, not, I don't know, maybe an hour out of Cusco, Peru. I had all my skywatching equipment set up. Now I've got thermal, which is far infrared. I've got near infrared, which is the green night vision. And I've got both near and far, like telescopic and plus wide angle as well. And I've got the telescopic thermal, the black and white thermal, which measures heat and produces images. And I've got the wide angle thermal. I've got the full spectrum cameras, which captures from ultraviolet through to visible through to near infrared. And then I've got just regular visible as well. I had it all set up. And I turned to the group after we were watching for a while, and I said, you know what? I really feel strong that we're going to make personal contact here. Let's just put the equipment away. Now, this is $100,000 worth of equipment. I just shut it down. I packed it up. I put it away. We did a meditation. We did our own form of CE5 protocols. We did a meditation. After we were done, Marcus, he took his iPhone and he says, Rob, you know, I'm just going to take my iPhone and start taking random pictures up in the sky. Remember we did that in Australia, he said, and we got some interesting things showing up. So, you know, I put all the expensive equipment away and we've got our simple iPhones out. I said, well, I'm going to do the same thing. So we turned them on automatic, I guess, and so that they would flash or not flash, depending. But it was pitch black, the sky. We couldn't see each other. So the first 3 pictures I took, I thought it was strange because my flash did not go off. But I didn't think any more of it, and I took another 80 pictures, just, up in the sky, up at about a 45-degree angle, 30 to 45-degree angle. And when we were done, I noticed that there was lightning happening not far away from us. And I said, you know what, we better just pack up. We're high up on the mountain. We got the car there, it's metal. We've got, my tripod was still sitting there. We got metal around us. We better just get out of here. So we didn't review the pictures. We just packed, we put stuff in the car and we got out of there. And we actually went through a storm on our way back to where we were staying in Cusco. The next day we were in transit to Machu Picchu, the famous village, Inca village up in the mountains. And then the following day we went to Machu Picchu and we did the Machu Picchu, like we climbed up the mountain next to Machu Picchu. It's up in the clouds. That night, because Machu Picchu closed at 5, that night I had some time to kill. So I thought, this is a great opportunity to look through all my pictures from Cusco. Well, the very second picture I looked at is that picture that I sent you, James. It's kind of a purplish blue craft with a huge amount of detail on it. And I thought, oh my God, what is this? And I immediately sent it by text to Marcus and Liz, and they're like, Rob, WTF, right? And I said, yeah, I know. And they said, what is it? I said, I don't know, but it was a second photo. And when I put it on my computer and blew it up, and I right-clicked to get the information, it said that the flash was it's disabled. In other words, there was enough light present that the flash didn't go off. And I thought, that's why in the first 3 pictures my flash didn't go off. Now, why didn't we see it? Well, okay, it was quite bright in the picture on my iPhone, but if you look, it's kind of a purplish blue color. And for those that don't know, they don't use expensive optical filters in the iPhones and in these smartphone cameras. Basically, they use a cheap filter, and it does not get all the IR, like infrared light and ultraviolet light. It doesn't screen it all out. You can actually take pictures with your iPhone and get down into the ultraviolet spectrum a little bit and into the infrared spectrum a little bit, which is quite amazing. If anybody wants to test this, and especially with your front-face camera, just take your TV remote and press any one of the buttons and shine that LED into your camera, and you'll see it light up. And then also press the buttons and look at the remote, the LED with your eye, and you will not see it light up. So that's how you can prove that you can see infrared with your cameras. So the only thing I can surmise is this was in the ultraviolet spectrum. That's why we didn't see it with our eyes. But it's a very detailed picture. If you want to use that as one of the thumbnails for this, you're welcome to do that.
Rob, I think I might have it up now. I'm not 100% sure. Right now what I've got up is a picture. It looks like the sun's sort of setting in the background. You're looking up a hill, and you can see it looks like some camera gear silhouetted, and then there's a tree, and it looks like it's all lit up. Is that
that's
the pic?
not the one. No,
okay.
This photo is only of that craft. I know I sent it to you early in our conversation on Messenger. I can send it to you right now again if you'd like.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's see if we can get that up. So we take a look at it. I'm not sure. I've got a few pictures here that I'm scrolling through, but
yeah, let me send that to you right now. I'm on the group. I'm on the group message right now.
Okay.
And I'm just pulling up favorites, and I will just find it real quickly for you. Here it is, and I'll send it. Okay. It's that one right there. It's now sent.
Okay, got it. Hang on a sec.
Okay, that's the one. That's the one right there.
Yep. Oh, this one. Okay, got it. All right. Hang on a sec. I will save that. And why don't you continue, and then I'll jump back in and let you know when.
Yeah. So we did not see that in live. That was one that I randomly got, but it was the very second picture, and it was after having a strong feeling we were going to make contact. Now, we estimate that that's a blow up. The original picture, I will send you that one as well.
Okay.
That is an original picture, but it's a blow up, okay? The actual photo, we feel that that craft or whatever it is was probably about 300 feet away from us. And here is the actual original one. I'm just sending it through the group message. And of course, okay, there it goes. It's just sending now. We feel it's about 300 feet away, but I didn't see it till 2 days later. And only because the iPhone caught it, and we didn't see it with our eyes. But also,
I've got the pickup now. I've got the picture up. That one picture up now. Let me get the second one. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, that's no problem. I would encourage people. This opens up a huge field for people if they're doing CE5. This is really important. Almost nobody does this. We discovered this in Australia. The group down there encouraged us to take pictures around the group, with and without flashes, up in the air, with and without flashes, but they encourage you to take 2 or even 3 of every position so you can use as a control picture. For example, point your iPhone up, make sure your flash is off, and take 3 pictures in a row, at least 2, and then move it to another spot, take 2, and do not move your camera when you're taking the photo. Move it to the position, keep it still, and take 2 photos. And if I could make another recommendation, because the iPhone is very bad at focusing in the dark, it won't focus in the dark. Before you take your pictures, aim, for example, if I was up on that hill again, mine happened to focus, okay, but a lot of times it won't. What I would do now is I would move the camera point it down the valley to the street lights way down in the town below, press and hold the screen until it locks the focus and exposure, and then leave it locked, and now start taking your pictures so that you'll have your iPhone or your Android focused on infinity, and whatever you get will be in focus now. Okay, so I would really encourage people to do that when they practice CE5, and especially if they see a flash up in the sky. I'll get into what we had happen in Joshua Tree around this in a minute. But, that's where you're going to see some really neat things happen, because your phone will pick up in infrared and it will pick up in ultraviolet. And I swear that these, ET craft are quite often, cloaked. They're not seen in visible light. They're only seen in ultraviolet or infrared. But my phone picked it up, and that's 100% real. It's authentic. I've Googled that picture using Google image search, and there's not a single picture on the face of this earth that matches that. I've done 5 image search engines and put that image in every one of them, and it comes back no results found. So that image, and we use that for our logo too, by the way. Part of one of our logos, we use that image, a different version of it. But it's something that CE5ers can do, especially when if somebody's very sensitive in the group and senses the presence of something around them, whether it's ET beings or other. And by the way, people should always say it with their mouth that they want to connect with beings of a higher benevolent nature. We have never connected with beings of a lower nature, but, some people say they exist. I don't want anything to do with it if there is. It's kind of like, the bigger cities, where the bad areas are, and you should just stay away from those areas. I don't know if there's ET beings of a lesser, lower, malevolent nature. People say there are. I don't want to connect with those, and I encourage other people not to try to connect with those. Try to connect with a higher being. So just state it when you're doing a CE5 protocol that you believe and that you only want to connect with higher beings. I just mentioned that also.
Yeah.
But so using this camera technique, if people feel that there's something around them, or if somebody maybe sees something in the sky, get the cameras out and just go nuts. Just take pictures. We did that in Joshua Tree. we had one flash only, and the flash lasted, was a little bit different than what might be considered a rocket body or a satellite. I said to the group that was present around our circle, I said, okay, everybody get their phone out and start taking pictures with no flash. And James, I sent you a series of pictures that we got in Joshua Tree, and typically an iPhone, if you take a picture in the dark, it will use a 1/4 second exposure. So anything that happens during that 1 second is going to be recorded on the screen of your phone. So we've got several pictures where it looks like, I guess you could call it like a pearl string of pearls. And we determined that there was two sets of things happening. There was one set of things flashing at 45 times a second. And then there was another phenomenon that was flashing at 90 times a second. So what it does is it creates, if it's moving across your screen, or if your phone is moving, when you happen to take the exposure, you're going to get a string of pearl effect. Because if something's flashing at 45 times a second and it's moving, then it will paint a string of pearls across the frame of your camera.
Yeah, just like as if you had like an extended exposure and there's a plane or something going by, it'll be long, but you're saying this is happening within such a short period of time that it's creating this effect. Yeah.
Now, I sent you several of those pictures. I can send them again to the group message right now if you like, but we didn't see those. Once again, when we, and 5 people of our group got different pictures, but they're all different. They all seem to get a different object. And I've got the one which we call the gold ribbon. There's one that was green, and it just seems to, they're like a string of pearls. It's flashing on and off. And we got one where when you do a close-up, there appeared to be 3 lights in each flash. So what is it? I have no idea. But I know it's not a plane because when we did that, there weren't any planes present. I have no idea what it is, but they're being seen by our phones. And because they use cheap filters in the phones, it's wonderful for CE5 people. They can use their phone as a tool. And then they can get away from these power-ups that they believe are ET craft flashing at. Now, not to say that some of these power-ups aren't legitimate. Yes, it does happen. Where, yes, it does flash back at you with a irregular pattern. But 90% of the time, these so-called power-ups are just these rocket bodies or space junk that's turning around at a rate, and it flashes at an exact interval, and so that's not likely ET.
Yeah, not one thing I like to use as a rule of thumb is if you do see something and you use your intention to then ask that object to do something anomalous, and it does, then you have something. Otherwise, you can almost mark it off.
Yeah, and again, for people that are first getting into CE5, it's exciting to see all these things in the sky because you haven't noticed those things before. So it's a normal and natural thing to think that they're ET craft, but over time, people will discern more and more and more and more, and they want to see more than just the garden variety flashes in the sky. They'll get bored of that, and and that's where, people will get more into C5 protocols, into meditation, and actually have a connection with this phenomena and actually be able to call it in, not necessarily every time, but, there would be a high chance that you can call them in, like when we were on the slopes of the mountain near Cusco, and we really believed, we could feel it, that we were going to capture something, and we did. When we were in Squamish, BC, we all felt it, that we were going to connect with something, and we did. And I can tell you that literally now, when we get those strong feelings, it's almost 100%.
Yeah. I think there's something to that, because the same thing with me. If I'm starting and I know I kind of feel like I don't have a strong feeling for tonight, it usually is not an eventful night, but I'll go into it on another night and I'm like, this is I feel it already before I even start my meditation. And lo and behold, it's a very active night.
Yes. And to that, I remember, when we started in 2015, I did go on a Greer expedition, and I realized, Dr. Greer is very controversial. People either love him or hate him or both. And, we won't get into that here too much, but I can say that I did go on the expedition with him in a group of 25 people. And I can say that there were several legitimate things that happened. For example, during the meditation, one of the people in the meditation got a message that at 11:11 p.m. that night there was going to be a, quote, visitation. And when 11 p.m. came up, Dr. Greer called a break. And he said, there's been a message, and if people want to stay and see what happens, that's great. Or if you want to go back to the retreat, and it's just up the path, a few hundred feet, to freshen up and have something to drink or whatever, go to the bathroom, whatever. So half the group left, and I thought, no way, I'm staying. If somebody in the group has called this, maybe it's false, maybe it's true. I want to see it for myself. So at exactly 11:11, like, we were still in the circle, those that were left, and we were just chit-chatting, waiting for the others to come back after the pause, after the break. But at exactly 11:11, I was looking over towards Stephen Greer, and above his head, at about 5 to 10 degrees up in the sky, and it was a moonless night, I saw a light, and I was the one that found it. And as I looked and strained my eyes, I could see it was moving in a corkscrew motion. In other words, it was going around. It was going from right to left, and it was going up into the sky, but in a corkscrew motion, like a helix or whatever. And I quickly pointed it out to the group, and Greer stood up, and he said, yes, that's an ET craft. And one of the guys in the group, Cam, he rushed over to his camera that was on the tripod and set a 20-second exposure. And after he got the 20 seconds, he reviewed it, and he came over to Greer, and everybody was huddled around, and he showed it in the screen to everybody, specifically to Dr. Greer. And I quickly hit the record on my iPhone and recorded. I was leaning over Greer's shoulder, and I recorded the screen of this camera. And I have that video on YouTube. It's called, Spiral Craft, Durango, Greer Expedition, Durango, Colorado. If anybody searches that, they'll see Dr. Greer talking about that craft. And that is 100% legitimate also. I saw it spiral. I also took photos with my camera, but I had just started into this, and mine are very bad. Mine are very bad photos. But Cam got a very clear one, and it left a spiral track. It looks like a spring, and it left a spiral track in the frame in the 20-second time lapse. Now, we watched it, and it went faster and faster until it disappeared into space. So it appeared to go into another dimension. That was legitimate. And then we had another thing happen another night where Dr. Greer said he sensed ET beings around us. And he encouraged everybody to take photos with their cameras, but he was very insistent that nobody use their flash. And in fact, he gets quite upset if you use your flash because it kills your own personal night vision, right? It kills your eyes for a few minutes afterwards.
A few minutes, yeah.
So he gets very upset at people. And so nobody dare use their flash. And I sent you those photos also. And he's got this almost like a table. He calls it a puja table set up. Well, it was pitch black, and yet the end of the table is self-lit, and it lights up what looks like almost like an angel or a lady with her hand up in the sky. I sent you that photo. I can send it again if you need me to.
Frank, do you have it there?
I'm not 100% sure. Why don't you send it along? If it looks familiar, I'll pop it in real quick.
Yes. Let me just open it up real quick here, and we'll send you that one. Give me a second here. Close that. Okay, move to favorites here. and let that open. And
so you don't leave everything on your desktop
well, I'm
the
on
way
my
I do.
phone. I'm on my phone. Okay, so the first picture I'm going to send is in daylight, showing my view across to Dr. Greer, and you see the puja table. So that's the first photo.
Okay, there that is.
Okay,
All right.
so that's what it looked like in the daylight, because we start about 8 while it's still daylight. Okay, and then this photo here is when he encouraged everybody to start taking pictures. Okay, so there's this one now, and you see it lit up, and it's self-lit. And then here is, I'm going to send you a blow-up of it. And I'm just opening my favorites again. This is a blow-up of it right here. And then I'll send you, I have to open up the favorites every time. It's a pain with the messenger program here. Here is now a real close-up picture. Now, everybody that sees that said, well, that looks like a woman. She's holding something up to the sky. And other people have said to me, what's that on her back? Is that wings? Now, don't know. All I know is we did not see anything with our eyes. This was caught with a camera. And once again, even regular cameras, depending on the make and model, use really good visible only pass filters, or they're not so good and they pass a little bit of ultraviolet or infrared. It depends on the camera. Some are better than others, but for sure iPhones are really, really bad for allowing more than visible light to pass through, but being really bad is really good for CE5. Okay, now I'm going to send you another picture, and this is when you lighten up the picture, and you'll be able to see that, in fact, this, I need to find it here. This.
Okay, I got this one.
Here's the photo.
Okay, Rob, you're breaking up a little bit here.
If you look at this, you can see it's. Let me hold my phone up higher. I got a better signal. Okay, I'm going to stand over by the window here.
Okay, now you sound better. You sound
okay, right. Okay, and if I stand on one foot and hold my arm up, that will be better too.
No, you were fine. You were fine.
Okay.
You were fine all along up until just the last minute or so.
Okay, probably sending all these photos kills the signal. Okay, do you see that image? And if you look at it carefully, that light is actually projected onto the front of a girl that's kneeling there. That's the very last photo I said. Just tap on it and blow it up a little bit, and you'll actually see the girl's head and her shoulder. And she's kneeling, and that light of what looks like a being is projected onto her. It's actually onto her arm and stuff.
Okay, let's see here. Now, what I've got up now is the last one that you sent over. Looks like you can see the stars. The sky is kind of light. There's a group of trees silhouetted in the background, and looks like you can see the table. And I don't know if that's the one you're talking about or not.
Yes. Now, the table, once again, is the phenomenon that's lighting up that table. There was nothing that could light that up. It was dark. But right beside the table, you see the image of what looks like some kind of a being.
Okay.
Now, if you look right next to that, it's kind of difficult, and I think the problem is Messenger compresses pictures, and your version might not be the best, but you can see it's kind of black right beside that. And
not sure exactly what you mean. And also, the picture is a little small. I'm looking at it in the program that I do.
Yeah, no problem. We can move on, but in a very clear picture, you can see that it's actually projected onto a girl that's kneeling down in front of that table.
Okay.
But we can move on, no problem. But getting back to Joshua Tree with those strings of pearls, that was a phenomenon that we captured with our iPhones. And, once again, I got all this expensive equipment, but some of the best stuff I've got is simply with my iPhone. You don't need all this expensive equipment. Anybody can just go out in the field with their iPhone. I mean, everybody has an iPhone or an Android.
So you don't need to have that rig where it looks like you've got like a half a dozen cameras and you've got it pointed up at the sky. And
you don't need it. You don't need it. You don't need it. Like, honestly.
But how much cool stuff have you got with that rig?
Well, I got the Squamish orb with that. I did capture. We were in. We did a 4-country tour in the UK. We did England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, and we were out over the North Sea there, looking on a beach, and it was daylight. And with my thermal, I captured an object moving across the sky, which was not visible with any of the other equipment. It wasn't visible with regular cameras. It wasn't visible to our eye. It wasn't visible with binoculars. And interestingly enough, we've got video, and I've done an insert. I think if you see it on YouTube if you go, I don't even know how it's listed. Just go whales, object, thermal, something like that on my channel. But what was interesting about that one was when you blow up the video, you zoom in, the object, and I had the thermal set for black as hot. In other words, the warmer that an object is, the more black it's going to be in thermal. Okay, and if an object's cold, it's going to be more white. So it just is shades of gray. Well, this object in the sky was black underneath. And yet it was a very warm, sunny day with clear skies, mostly clear. And I would think that the top of the object should have been black if it was a plane. This one was black underneath, which I thought was odd. So that almost, you start theorizing what it might be. That could indicate some kind of a propulsion system underneath. I don't know. But it wasn't one of ours because we didn't see it in visible cameras. And I had high-powered binoculars that were aimed right at it as well. And we also had a P900 camera. And I've got a spotting scope. It's just a tube, actually, a PVC tube that I line everything up with. And we had one of the people that was with us, Kelly, who was with us at the time. She aimed her P900 through the spotting tube, which, once again, PVC pipe, and had the exact same position of where this object was, and it wasn't seen. And that's got 83 times zoom, and it's the equivalent.
The P900 is a nice little camera for folks who aren't familiar with it. It's a Nikon camera. It's a nice camera.
Yeah, and that was really my first camera that I got started with, and it just kind of expanded from there.
Yeah. Just to give folks an idea at home, with a P900, if you zoom in, you can actually photograph the rings of Saturn with that camera.
Yes, and of course, very easily the craters on the moon, and you can. If you're on a tripod, you'll get the moon moving through your frame, and you can practically see people walking on the moon if they were walking on the moon. But it's a good camera to get started with for sure.
So, Rob, just for tech heads and people who want to get equipment out in the field, why don't you run us down a quick equipment list of like some of your gear?
Yes. So I've got the Sony A7R and the Sony A7S are two good cameras to have.
Are those DSLR cameras, or are they? Yeah,
they're mirrorless.
Okay.
They're mirrorless, and so you can leave them open. You download the apps that are available, and you can do time exposures. And I would say, it
looks like daylight, right?
Yeah, really the best way to get started, honestly, is get an A7R. It's 40 megapixel photos, and then focus it at infinity. Get the app, the time-lapse app, and depending on how dark it is, do anywhere from 15 to 30-second exposures. And I've captured so much stuff with that. That is a really good one to get. If you get the A7R, they're more sensitive at nighttime, and you can do video at nighttime, but it's very grainy, and they're only 12 megapixel photos. So honestly, I would say the A7, which is the one with 40 megapixels, A7R, I guess. Yeah, because A7S, I nickname S stands for sensitive. So, but the ISO is very high, but it's very grainy with low megapixels. So go with
Yeah.
the A7R and go with time lapse. That's the best way to get started. And just, you can, get a Sigma 24 millimeter lens. So you'll have to get the adapter. And so it's more, a little bit wider angle, and you'll get strange things happening in the sky recorded in time lapse on that one. I used that at the East Ranch, and I captured the lights moving around at the top of the mountain there. And that was another thing, the East Ranch, those lights, I zoomed in with thermal, and there's nothing up there. I should have had bodies walking around if they were hikers. Nothing in thermal, and it's very sensitive. It's all light. It's just like plasma lights up there. They're cold lights. But I would say if they want to get started and they want to spend, the P900 is a really good one to get started with, because you can pick those up for $500 or $600.
Yeah, $500-600 exactly.
Yeah, and then if they want to then graduate, I would say the next camera is the Sony A7R, and just leave it as visible. Don't convert the filter yet. Leave it as visible. And just download, pay the $5 or whatever, and download the time-lapse app so that you don't hear your shutter opening and closing. It just leaves it open the whole time, and you can set it on 15 or 30-second exposures, and then you can play it back as a video, and you'll be blown away with the stuff you're going to capture in that. And if you want to get night vision, just for viewing, there's some good stuff on the market that's not bad. I know that Charles, I forget the name of it right now. Charles,
he has the Luna.
The Luna, yeah, I get that. Do you know what the cost on that is, James?
I don't. He sent it over to me because I was asking about it. And
what's the model number? I'll look it up real quick.
I'm not even sure the model number.
I don't know. Lunar night vision, I would say it's like full color night vision, and that's a really good one to get started with. So that's what I would recommend. I've got a lot of...
I think he said the new one records too, right?
Yes, you can put the micro SD card in, and it'll record.
Yeah, perfect. And what about the night vision that you have? You have a Gen 3.
Yeah, you're going to spend several $1,000s for that.
Yeah, that's $3,000 at least.
Yeah, that's not necessary to get started. It really isn't.
Yeah, no, but just for to put everything out there.
Yeah, in Canada here, it's Gen 3. I don't believe you can have, but this one is one hair under Gen 3.
Yeah, it's a Gen 3.
And yeah, it's right next to it. You can't tell the difference actually, and it's available from General Canadian Starlight Incorporated, GSCI, I think it's called, in Richmond Hill, Canada, and those can be exported anywhere in the world. You can buy those, and they're virtually Gen 3.
Just to jump in, I would recommend that you don't try to play too cheap on the tripod too. Get a decent tripod.
Yeah,
especially with this expensive gear here, you don't want to. You don't want a cheapo tripod and have it fall over and break.
Well, in fact, that's what happened with me. Is I had a $600 tripod, but as the equipment got heavier and heavier, it actually broke the tripod, because it's like, I think it's close to 50 pounds or 60 pounds that's sitting on top there. Wow. So I had to go out and buy a really good tripod that could carry the weight of this stuff, and I put all this stuff in my luggage, like it goes in my carry-on. Basically, my rule of thumb is anything over $1,000 goes in carry-on. Everything else goes underneath. And we travel around the world with this stuff. You go around the world with this stuff, but you don't need it. You really don't need it. I would say you can capture 80%. It's kind of the 80-20 rule. You can capture 80% of the phenomenon with just very inexpensive stuff. It's really just getting into that other 20% or even less with the high-tech gear. You don't need it. Just do your meditation, do your CE5, and you bring them in, and you're going to see it with your eyes. You can capture them with your iPhones. And the stuff you can't see with your eyes, you can capture with your iPhone, or your P900 or your Sony A7R. You really don't have to spend a huge amount of money.
Yeah. Now, your documentary that's coming out. What can we expect to see in the documentary?
Yes, so it basically is chronicling the journey from when we first got going 3.5 years ago till now, and it's ongoing. There's going to be follow-ups with it. It's called Making Contact, Be Inspired. We're screening it, like I say, in Laughlin at Paul Harris's Starworks Symposium in November. And shortly after that, depends on the distributor, whether they want to do it on streaming or DVD or like Netflix or wherever, iTunes. But it won't be long after that. Within probably a month or two after that, it'll be available for the public. And it basically, it just chronicles us. We interview just average people and the experts as well. It's funny because, you're getting ordinary people seeing extraordinary things. It seems the more ordinary the people are, the more extraordinary stuff they see, because they open their mind up and they make these connections to whatever it is out there. And
Rob, just to jump in, there's nothing ordinary about you. I've done a little bit of looking at your background. There's nothing ordinary about you. You're quite a guy from what I'm reading up on you, in your personal life and your professional background. But one thing I'm kind of curious about, you spoke a little bit about your evolution from being a witness as a preteen to getting into all this. Can you go into a little bit more detail about that? I mean, what convinced you that the CE5 stuff has some merit?
Well, like I say, I had no idea that second group that we got as a kid, that we called them in. But once I learned that, basically 4 years ago, we've really gone down the road of practicing that. I've meditated all my life, actually. I've gotten involved with meditation, and I've really cranked that up of late. And I just know that if you get yourself quiet, and whether it doesn't matter who you are, you just get yourself quiet. You can do very simple mantras. You don't even have to do mantras. Just get yourself quiet, turn the noise down, relax yourself, and believe that you can make contact, and you will. I don't know what to say. My friend Mark McNabb, who he was the guy that, I did movies together, like I say, and he heard my story. He went and did research for 6 months. He came back and told me that, you guys as young guys, you called them in. He didn't have to say any more than that, because then I made the connection that, yes, he was truthful in what he was saying. And, and just going around the world and talking to all these people, we've interviewed hundreds of people, and they're going to be in our documentary. And, anybody can do this. Different people are more sensitive and some are less sensitive. But if you're a person that's less sensitive to this, and you truly have the intention that you want to explore this phenomenon and make contact, you will. And maybe I can come back now to that idea in Australia where we believe we may have made contact with an ET being. You want me to talk about that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Get into it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we were in Australia for 3 weeks. This was last spring, like a year ago. And we had gone to see the Ayers Rock, Uluru. That's that big rock in the middle of Australia. And there's lots of stories around that. There's lots of story of ET craft that have been seen going right into the rock and then shooting up right above it. We've talked to many people that had experiences with that. But we wanted to try to see something and document it. And we had with us one of the CE5 experiencers, Lauren Firth. She traveled around with us. And the one night when we were at the resort or retreat there, not far from Ayers Rock, I said, how about we go out and spend all night out with the equipment and just see what we can see. So her and I went out. We drove out, and it's all desert. There's a little bit of scrub, small little bushes and trees, but it's virtually desert, and roads run straight for miles and miles and miles. And we we drove about 30 minutes from the resort. We found a little area where we could actually drive out into the desert a little bit, like 300 feet away from the road. We wanted it to be a little bit inconspicuous because we were going to be there all night. So we were about 300 feet off the road. It's all hard packed, sort of gravelly sand, and scrub and bush, so no big deal. We were parked there, and we had been, seeing satellites go across the sky and stuff. Nothing special. And we had the equipment set up, and about, 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe later, a car also drove into the area where we were, about 50 feet away from us. And I thought that was odd, because our car could not be seen from the road. We had things kind of hidden away. And of all the places, this car drove into the same area where we were. And there's hundreds of miles of nothing. Like, why this? But whatever. So we saw the light on inside his car, and, he was messing around, and then he got out of his car. And I said to Lauren, I'm going to go over and talk to him. And she didn't want me to. She was afraid. And she says, what if he comes over and steals your equipment or whatever, or does something bad? And I said, okay. I put my laser, I've got a high-powered laser, I stuck it in my back pocket. And I thought that would be my weapon. Now, if he pulled a gun or a knife on us, we're snookered. But I thought, well, if I get attacked, he's getting it right in the eye. I would never hurt anybody, but if somebody aggressively attacks me, they're going to get it. And all bets are off, sort of thing. So I walked over, and she came with me, and I started talking to this guy. He was a tall and a good-looking guy. He was maybe 6'5", and things started to not jive. For example, he said that he had just driven 18 hours from the northern part of Australia. He worked in a mine and was going home for the weekend. And I thought, well, somebody who had just driven 18 hours, especially if it's a guy, should have a bit of a beard growth, and he didn't have that. And he said he had just come from his work, but honestly, he looked like he had just gotten his clothes from the laundry, like pressed. They were all still pressed and clean. He looked like he had just bought them. And then when I asked him what he was doing there, he said he was going to go skywatching. He seemed to be mirroring things that we were doing. And when he was talking, everything seemed to be rehearsed. It didn't seem natural. And
he's got the local accent, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But not exactly the same. And it was just strange in talking with him that he didn't seem to be. The more I asked him questions, I seemed to know more about Australia than he did. And it just didn't seem to jive. And I've read, we have never actually made contact prior to this with ETs. I mean, we do want to, but we hadn't. I've read stories where supposedly there's ETs living on Earth. Now, I don't say I believe it or not. I'm just repeating what I've read. And yet some of these ETs look like us. And I've heard stories where they show up at picnics and they're wearing a suit. It's kind of like they're out of place. It's kind of like they've read up on what humans do and they try to copy and they don't quite get it right. So, it's almost like in the Second World War, the Americans hired German people who lived in the States for a long time to become spies, and they trained them on all the current culture in Germany. They go to Germany and they kind of fit in, but if anybody would question them long enough, they'd realize they're not from there. So that is how it felt with this guy. I asked him all these questions, and even where he was going, he couldn't quite tell me. Like, he had all these superficial answers, and he didn't even speak in a natural manner of speaking. Everything seemed to be rehearsed. And, the fact that he's coming sky watching in the same spot where we are. So, Lauren, she had told me, I hope the guy doesn't stay here. She was a little nervous. And anyway, the guy said to us, if you are not comfortable with me being here, I can go. Like, he kind of read our minds, read her mind, not my mind. And I wanted to keep talking with him. So when he said, if you're not comfortable, I'll leave. I'll go somewhere else. Lauren said, that would be very kind of you. Thank you very much. And I thought, geez, why did she say that? I honestly started thinking, this guy is not from here. This guy might be an ET living on Earth. And so he left. And I said to Lauren afterwards, I says, this guy might be an ET. I said, it doesn't add up. All the different stuff. His clothes look like he just bought them, where they're freshly pressed. There's no beard growth. He's not answering the questions correctly. They're all rehearsed. He's a little bit mechanical. She said, yeah, you're right. So, but anyway, he was gone, and we continued our sky watching. And then about 5:30 in the morning, when it started to become light, we packed up the equipment and we went back all the way 30 minutes down the road to the retreat, to the resort. As we were turning in, Lauren said to me, did you see that car that just went by? And I said, no. She said, that's him. That's the guy that pulled into the spot where we were sky watching last night. And I said to her, I thought that he was going home. What's he doing around here? So I immediately pulled a U-turn and I said, let's go after him. Let's see if we can catch up to him. I thought, great, we can have a second chance to talk to him. Everything about this seems strange. So I turn the car around immediately and I go down the road and there's no car to be seen. And I was going very fast and, probably 150 kilometers an hour. There's no speed limit on these roads out in the rural area anyway. But we never caught up to him and we went right back to the area where we were. Now, if this guy had been traveling 18 hours going home, what would he be doing hanging around where we were? And how come I never saw the car go by? Lauren saw the car go by. I didn't. And how come we never caught up to him? We didn't see a car. I mean, I don't know. There's just too many things about this. Was he truly an ET that we made contact with? Maybe. Don't know. I'll never know. But everything seemed really strange about everything that happened around it. And that's my story. Yeah, I don't know. So we may have made contact. Don't know. The name of our project is Making Contact. The name of our movie is Making Contact, Be Inspired. We're getting closer and closer to the phenomenon. We do want to make contact. We've talked to lots of people who have, including the famous six topaz wells. As you know, Paola Harris has made contact with her ET guys, Antarel at Mount Shasta. There's lots of people who have had contact with ET beings. Do I believe them or not? I can only say that I don't believe anything unless I see it for myself, or actually have an experience.
You do believe that they believe it, though?
Yes, I do. Okay. Yeah. I don't disbelieve them. It's just that I want to make contact. In this phenomena, there's so much stuff on the internet. There's so many stories. What do you believe unless you've experienced it yourself, right?
Yeah, generally, I believe that people who say what they say, that unless I've got good reason not to, I generally believe that they believe it. That's kind of how I approach it, anyway.
Yeah, once again at the Stephen Greer thing, it came out in meditation that there was going to be the visitation at 11:11. That's when I saw the craft, which looks like something that's not one of ours, so there's just so much to this phenomena. And honestly, myself, we're on a path of exploration, and we do want to make contact. We want to share it with others. We want to document all of this. We want to show people how we've gotten also caught believing stuff is craft when it's not. We want to show them how we've debunked and how we're trying to debunk everything that we see. And if it's legitimately not explainable, then we say. And but we can't believe everything we see. We do want to make contact, and I do believe that there are ETs, and I want to come face to face with them. I really do.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, even if you think about it, some CE5 is still out there for some people. I mean, it's getting out there, and I guess you can say it's becoming more accepted, and more people are coming on board. But yeah, I think the more people that that are coming out, and I think as this, I don't know what you want to call it, with To the Stars and everything that's happening with the mainstream media, it seems that this subject in general, the phenomenon, is becoming more accepted. And I think that as that happens, and it is more in the collective consciousness and accepted, and more of an everyday thing, that we're going to see CE5s and contact become closer, more normal, and more widespread.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I strongly believe that, the phenomenon or the beings, the ETs behind all of this, they, for example, with my equipment, if they don't want me capturing it, I don't get it. It almost seems like if they want me to capture it, they will let me get it. And, they're the ones that are behind this disclosure. When they say and allow it to happen, it'll happen. It won't be us. They're going to allow. I've heard that when 20% of the world have experienced the phenomenon, disclosure is going to happen. They're going to allow it to happen. That came out in a message that somebody got during meditation. And, who knows? I just know that, what we've heard many times is they don't want us to be afraid. They don't want to scare us. They don't want mass panic. So, they're allowing themselves to be seen more and more and more and more and more, and gradually getting us used to this. And when they decide to allow it to happen, it'll happen. Yeah,
that's going to be an exciting time for sure.
So when will it be? I hope that it's in the next few years. I would love to be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really, and even the last year alone, with everything that's going on in the mainstream, the ball is moving down the field.
Yeah. There's more and more things happening. There's more and more stuff being dumped into media, like the what was that? The Nimitz incident, the Tic Tac, and all those things. There's so much that's kind of being leaked into the public domain now, and I mean, if you ask just about anybody on the street, almost everybody will say, yeah, they believe that there's something out there and that we can't be alone in the universe. And that's a change from even a few years ago. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but
for sure.
More and more people are believing that there's something out there. But a lot of people still say, well, it's not in my backyard, and it's not sort of happening live or whatever near me, but they are opening their minds up that there may be something.
Yeah, and the science is moving forward too. I mean, now in science they're talking about multiple dimensions, all these Goldilocks planets, and artificial intelligence being able to do all these amazing things. Genetics, everything is just it's catching up to the bit where people are like, oh well, wait, there's a lot more than we thought we knew.
Yeah, I don't know how long you want to keep talking, but we had an experience of multiple dimensions. Well, we've had actually quite a few. I don't know if you want to save that for another episode, but
if you want to get into that gets my attention when you say experiences. What exactly do you mean?
Well, okay. I gotta wrap it up here.
Okay.
Okay. So go ahead. Yep.
Let's see. If you want to give an abbreviated version.
Sure. We were in Australia once again, and the top places in the world are, in my mind, Peru and Australia for this phenomenon. But we were in Australia over March 1st last year, and one of the members of our group, Liz Gorin, she, back home, she had her rent due March 1st. So she had asked her ex, like they share two boys. So, her ex has a key to her apartment in case sometimes he has to bring the boys back and stuff when she's not there. But she had asked her ex to pay her rent while we were in Australia. And she said, go into my apartment on March 1st, go to the top dresser drawer, and there's a checkbook, and I've written the rent, and tear out that check. And go down to my landlord and give him the check. Would you be so kind to do that? And he said, yes. So on March 1st, he did go into our apartment. We were in Australia. He tore out the check and took it down to the landlord. The landlord deposited in the Ukrainian Credit Union in Toronto, Ontario. And she watched while we were in Australia on her app and saw that the check went through and her rent was paid. However, and I've got physical proof that I can provide for you guys on this with pictures. When we got back from Australia, she had more bills to pay, obviously, as everybody does. She went to her dresser drawer to get the checkbook to write further checks. And lo and behold, what was still in the checkbook was that check. It was still there, not torn out. She immediately called her husband and said, you know, did you not pay the rent? I see that you did, and it's in my app, but the check is still in the checkbook in my drawer. I don't understand what's happened. He said, yes, I tore it out. Anyway, we have that check. We have that physical check, yet we have the copy of the check going through the banking system where it was wet stamped, and you know the bank has provided a copy of the check. We have blown it up. The landlord wrote 308, her apartment number, on the bottom right-hand corner, and that is in the copy that the bank has. It has the front of the check. It has the back of the check, all wet stamped, and the teller's writing where she has written on his account number. We've taken both, and we've blown them up, and we've placed one over the other in front of a window, and they're exactly the same. We've gone to handwriting forensic people who've said it's the same check. And it's like, but how could it be still in the checkbook? We don't know. We've done a lot of research, and it's impossible under normal physics that check could be in the checkbook. But it is. It's still there to this day. And I've got pictures that I've taken with it. I've got a picture of the copy of the check that went through the banking system, right side by side to the picture of the check that's still there. And it's the same check number, everything. It's unexplained. And we've checked with scientists, and they've said since the 50s at the leading universities, they've proposed the existence of multiple dimensions. And mathematically, it's proven. Well, somehow we have gotten into a split timeline here. And he absolutely tore the check out. He absolutely gave it to the landlord, who physically took it to the bank, physically presented it to the teller, who physically stamped it with her stamp and who wrote on it. And it was physically scanned before being destroyed. And the bank gave us a certified true copy of the check. Yet, when you look in the checkbook, it's the original check that was written. Every little inflection of her handwriting is exactly the same. The check number is the same. We even checked to see if she somehow multiple checkbooks with the same numbers in them, and if somehow she had written a duplicate check, and she hadn't. And we had the expert tell us that even if she did manage to get another checkbook with the same check numbers in them and had written a duplicate, there's no way it would be exactly the same. Nobody can write a second check exactly the same way, right to the exact minute detail. They can't do it. So there's a case of multiple dimensions. It's a case of split timelines. Now, if you research into the internet, you'll see there's many cases of this kind of stuff happening. We just happen to be lucky enough to experience it for ourselves.
That sounds like the Hugh Everett multiple worlds kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Now, people say, like we've had people on blogs say, how come you guys get to experience this and we haven't? I don't know. I don't know. We didn't ask for it, but I can tell you that when you go down and you start exploring this whole phenomenon, more things start happening to you. And if you ask, you get. And if you go down the road with an open mind and a good heart and are sincere and align yourself with, benevolent beings, and you have good intentions, and you're not somebody that posts fake footage, but you are honest about what you're doing, and you do, you debunk yourself, and you allow others to debunk you as well, you will experience all kinds of what you guys call high strangeness.
I'm getting a little of that around the house these days. I'm
Yeah.
working on a legit explanation. We'll see how it goes.
There you go. So now, we'll save some more of this stuff for a further interview. There's lots more where this comes from, but and we have 100% proof on it all as well. And we had a lot of stuff happen on the beach at Playa Yaya, a known ET hotspot, and we've got it documented for the documentary as well. We got
Fantastic.
footage of it all.
Now, folks, I guess the easiest way to find the trailer on YouTube is to just go to YouTube, do a search, Rob Freeman, easy enough name to spell, CE5. They'll see your channel. You've got like 125 videos up already, so you've got plenty of video, lots of stuff that people can take a look at. And then the movie, people will be able to watch the full film by the end of the year, early next year. What's your timeline for that?
Yeah, I would say it'll be by the end of the year they'll be able to find it. Just search Making Contact, Be Inspired.
Fantastic. Okay, Rob, it was great having you on. Thanks for getting hold of Rob and turning him up for us there, James.
Oh, yeah, and Rob, thanks so much for everything you do, the work, the integrity. I'm really excited to see where this goes, too.
And thanks, James, and thanks, Frank. It was an absolute pleasure to be on.
Thanks again. We'll wrap this up. I'll turn off the feed and join us again when we're ready to roll again on some future Sunday. Thanks a lot, folks. Bye-bye now.
Bye.